A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 112th episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. Long back in April 2020, when the pandemic had just started, we set up this series of webinars so that we could connect with the community of educators and discuss the myriad set of problems that they were facing with the lockdown, with online education, and slowly over the months, we have progressed far beyond those bounds. We have discussed topics like mental health, the new education policy, and so much more. Today, we look at a topic that has perhaps taken a new meaning within this lockdown. We have often lost track of what day of the week it was. We've often lost track of whether it was time to close our office work and get to house, because, well, we're already at our houses. Today, we talk about time management, something that we have known from time immemorial to be extremely important to every individual's growth and development, but somehow, over these last 1.5 years, have assumed an entirely new, a very important meaning. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have often heard it being said that when you have a relative who is really a stickler for punctuality, that their discipline is almost a military discipline. So, who better to talk about this aspect than our first speaker today? Our first speaker today, ladies and gentlemen, is Major General Neeraj Bali. Major General Neeraj Bali Sena Medal is an Indian Army veteran who wore the uniform for 4 decades and superannuated in April 2016. During his career, he served in and on all the borders multiple times. He commanded an anti-terrorist Rashtriya Rifles Battalion in Jammu and Kashmir at the height of terrorism. He was awarded with the Sena Medal for gallantry and the Chief of the Army's commendation twice, both for service in J&K. He also participated in anti-terrorist operations against Ulfa militants in Assam. As a brigadier, he participated in the first Indo-US exercise at a strategic level and was appointed as a mentor on both the US and the Indian brigades. He has also served in Lesotho in southern Africa, is security advisor to the government and leader of Indian Army training team. As a major general, he held the prestigious appointment of GOC Dakshin Maharashtra. During his career, he taught in the infantry school at Mao, the Defense Services Staff College at Wellington, and Army War College at Mao. After his retirement, he was Chief Executive Officer of Pravara Rural Education Society that ran 92 schools and colleges in Maharashtra with 42,000 students on their rolls. He was also the Chief Executive Officer of Rodic Consultants Private Limited, a leading engineering PMC company. Major General Neeraj Bali has delivered talks on disruption, organizational culture, competitive intelligence, and leadership on several prestigious forums, including Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad, XLRI Jamshedpur, Strategic Competitive Intelligence Professional Summit in the US and Portugal, Institute of Competitive Intelligence Conference at Germany, CXO Conference of Tata Group of Companies, Wipro, Kirloskar Brothers, PSU heads at MDI, and 2 summits of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, to name a few. He is the founder of Leadscape Advisors, a consulting firm based on disruption, organizational culture, and leadership. Most importantly, he is today an ICF certified life and leadership coach. His long years of training gives him an insight and incisive nature into human nature and human behavior, which makes him such a successful leadership and life coach today. And we at Notebook are privileged to have him as an advisor guiding us forward in our efforts. Sir, it's a privilege to have you with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Shubhayu. I hope I have the sharing rights.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So good evening to all of you. Thank you, Shubhayu, for this wonderful, long introduction. Sometimes when I hear this introduction, I really wonder, is it about me? Because it sounds better than what I've done in life. Having said that, I'm going to speak for 15 minutes, and I assure you, none of this comes from any great theoretical background. We all talk about time, and we either look around and look at people who always say, I don't have enough time. I got too much on my plate. I don't know what to do. And yet, you also see outstanding examples of people who seem to achieve so much in the same life. Everybody's heard this, that whether you're a king or a pauper, you have this exact same 24 hours to spend. So could it be that the people who are achieving so much, who are growing, becoming different human beings, evolving, could it be that they know some secret? The answer is they know a bunch of secrets. And while we are aware of a few of them, I suppose, but it's equally hard to apply these things in our lives. So we are going to talk about a few practical frameworks that you and I can use right now in order to start managing time like a champion. And I'm speaking from the perspective of a life coach. All right. So 3 things. What is it? What is our problem with time? There is a quote which has been ascribed to Buddha. I don't know whether Buddha said this or not, but it says, the trouble is we think we have time. Somewhere at the back of our minds is a feeling that we have adequate time, and somehow the important stuff of life we will be able to catch up. We'll do. One day we will start reading more books. One day we will learn piano. One day we'll go and climb the Himalayas. One day we will do stuff because we have time. This is one of the biggest fallacies. We don't have time. 2 years ago, I was a couple of hours away from dying with a very serious illness called septicemia. And when I came out of the coma 28 days later, I realized we don't have time. We don't have time. We just put off these things because psychologically we think that we will have time and bad things happen to other people. The second human tendency is to delay stuff. How much comfort it gives us when we delay things. If you have to finish something by, say, Friday, and soon we come to know that it has to be submitted on Monday, we feel relieved. This is called procrastination, and it's a deadly disease. The third is we all feel snowed under work, and rightly so. Teachers more than anybody else. You got stuff to do at home, you got your own kids to teach, you're handling stuff online, you have to do documentation, all kinds of things. So where should we focus in the long term and on a daily basis? Now, this quadrant, these 4 quadrants you might have seen because it's from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I believe this matrix was initially created by the US President Eisenhower. Now, there are 4 places or 4 ways you can spend your time, or you spend your time. The first quadrant is things which are urgent and important. You got an exam tomorrow morning. It's important, it's urgent. You have really no choice. You've got to study for it. You got to submit a paper. You have to make a presentation. There is an audit in your company, right? Or on a daily basis, you're sitting, you're a teacher, and the principal's called you for a meeting. She says, come now. So this is a quadrant over which you have no control. And therefore, there is very little you can do about it. There is a second quadrant where stuff is not important, but it is still urgent. You're called for a meeting and the meeting doesn't start for an hour and then nothing happens in that meeting. Unfortunately, there was a time. You had to go. Or the telephone rings, you pick up the call, there is somebody chatty on the other side you just can't get rid of. It's not important, but it is urgent. This is a quadrant you should look at more carefully. Wherever you can control the situation, either don't do it or delegate it or delay it. The fourth quadrant, and I'm leaving the second one out, is stuff which is neither important nor urgent. Now, I'm surprised at the number of people who waste time doing this and then claim that they don't have time. What are they doing? They're sitting on Instagram looking at unknown people's photographs, putting likes on Facebook. Start watching a YouTube video for something useful and suddenly 1 hour is gone and you're watching so many other videos, right? Just going to somebody and having a conversation where neither party is listening to each other. We are just telling your own stories. This is not important, not urgent. And unless you have the willingness and the guts and the ambition to stop doing this, I'm afraid you will keep saying, I don't have time. But the crucial quadrant is the number 2 quadrant, where Stuff is important, but it is not screaming at you. That is the stuff we ignore, and that is the stuff winners do not ignore. What is important and not urgent? Your health, your reading habits, you're expanding your mind, you're saving money, you're building relationships in your own family, you're building relationships with others, right? Sometimes studies. They don't look urgent, but God knows they're important. And the reason we ignore them is because they don't look urgent. Please remember this. Winners focus on this quadrant. Stuff which is truly important, but not urgent. That's the big stuff for your life. But then there is big stuff for everyday life. When you get 3 or 4 tasks to do, what should you do first? How should you prioritize? The answer to that question lies in 3 things. First of all, look at which will give you long-term benefit. Whatever gives you a greater long-term benefit is the good decision. Try it. Right? So whatever you think is going to take you will be wonderful a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Going for a run, going to the gym, whatever is going to give you a long-term payoff is the thing to take, not what gives you a short-term kick or happiness. Right? The second is, if you're faced with 2 or 3 tasks, which one is harder? Do that first. Pick up the harder task and you'll feel like a winner in the next 10 minutes. Right? Grab that thing by the scruff of its neck and don't let go. Third, think, I've got 3 tasks. If I delay all 3, which will bring me the greatest pressure tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock? Do that first. Be your own friend. Right? These are the 3 frameworks. Now, in order to do these tasks, you can always make an outline. Always look at how much is involved in the task, scan it, and make a realistic schedule, and then go on with it. Don't promise yourself something that you can't do. There is a surprising cost to delaying stuff. What happens is this: when a work is given and then you delay it, the stress goes down. My God, I don't have to do this. Tomorrow's a rainy day. I don't have to go to school, so I don't have to work today. Your stress level goes down, but that stress level is going to exponentially go up a day later when you would have wasted the time and not done your job. So please remember this. There is always a huge cost to pay for delaying stuff. I heard Shubhavi talk about punctuality. Believe me, half the trick, maybe 80% of the trick, is to do things in time. And even a bigger trick is to learn from the army. Always have reserve time. You know, when army attacks with 2 battalions, they always have a third in the reserve. You know why? Because when things go wrong, if you don't have resources in reserve, how the hell are you going to influence the battlefield? So if you have to finish work by the 5th of July, you don't finish by 3rd. If things go wrong, if your computer packs up, if something else happens, you fall sick, then what happens? Always have a reserve. Now, in order to get over this procrastination, I'll just quickly say 5 things. Remind yourself, every time in life you delayed stuff, how much did it cost you? Are you willing to pay the cost again and again and repeat bad history? I talked about the joy of having reserves. In fact, I always advise my people, have reserves in 4 things: time, health, relationships, and money. It'll make you feel good. It'll make you feel like a winner. Always schedule things specifically. Don't say, one day I'm going to start reading. I think I'll read every day. No. Make an intention statement. Say out loud, I am going to read 10 pages every day at 10 p.m. at night when I'm sitting in the bed. If you're not even willing to make that intention statement, how are you going to get things done? Be specific. Can you imagine if the army was to say, one day we will beat Pakistanis in the battle. We'll see. One day we will prepare. Refuse to be a prisoner of perfection. Just try and do stuff which is good. Okay, there is no such thing as completely perfect thing. And finally, if you can't do a big job at the same time, please start doing it in slices. But my experience is when you start doing it in slices, you develop such a momentum that you end up doing it. Okay, today I was to create some digital certificates for a course I conducted. And I thought, let me do at least 3 today. I had to do a total of 15. And you know what happened? I put on some music and I finished all 15. So go for slices. but don't delay it. One of the last things I'm going to talk about is distractions. If you look at the top of the screen, there is an app called Stay Free. Please put it on your cell phones to find out how much time are you spending on apps? How much time are you spending on just looking at the screen? You will be surprised. My experience is that on average, people are spending 5 to 6 hours of their entire day just looking at a digital screen. What is coming out of it? What is coming out of WhatsApp? What is it that you're waiting for on Facebook? Some false like? Something which people will do because they want you to like their pictures? So please, I don't want you to get out of social media, but schedule it and say, I am going to go to Facebook every Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, and I will sit there for 15 minutes. And I'm quickly going to look at everybody's timeline or my timeline, right? But also remember, if you're spending so much time doing this funny stuff, what are you going to replace it with? It's like drinking. People say, people who drink every day, they say, I'm going to stop drinking. All right, but what are you going to do at 7 o'clock in the evening? Think of another interesting activity and replace it. And as far as interruptions are concerned, learn to say no. Please put that phone away. Try putting that phone away. When it rings, you will hear it. My last point is, surprisingly, rejuvenate. Give yourself some time of solitude every morning, right? Look at how your life is going. During the day, give yourself a break. Even if you're very busy, close your eyes for 5 seconds. Close your eyes for a minute if you can. Shut the computer for that period. When you're eating lunch, just shut the laptop. And always look for adequate sleep. Why am I saying all this? Because half the time you're so tired that you're working poorly, and that is why you're not able to manage your time. Try this, especially the adequate sleep bit. Now, that's just about all I had to say. I want to leave you with this last thought. Always do what is in your long-term good, and always do the harder thing first. Thank you very much for paying so much attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that wonderful, wonderful presentation. We knew we could count on you for some very concrete takeaways. And I'm quite sure when we put this recording up on YouTube, that presentation is going to get watched over and over again by everybody who's listened to you today. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, sir.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker today is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubham, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a very interesting and universally applicable topic. Balisa gave a wonderful introduction and really gave a complete 360-degree overview of the topic, focusing on various nuances. I must say, wonderful, great start to the evening. The way I look at this particular topic is our free time is evaporating. From the moment we wake up, our devices demand our attention more than our loved ones. With endless mails, WhatsApp notifications, we have become tethered to time-sucking digital distractions. And that's universal. I'm sure that's true for all of us. And we always just a messaging app or email away from our colleagues, even when you've signed up from work. Now, during the pandemic, the past year and a half, this further dismantled whatever little separation existed between work and home. Even I heard Shubhayu referring to this when he started our session today. Our sense of time really became blurred dinners and drinks with friends turned into lag-filled video calls. We were always at home. But now, as most of us are gradually becoming fully vaccinated and re-entering society in clothes that don't quite fit anymore, we have an opportunity to reset our daily calendars and rebalance our lives. You know? But the question is that yes, we want to help build healthier habits that structure our lives. Now, as I was telling you, I believe that not all waking hours need to be productive. We aren't robots to be optimized. And my goal here today isn't to inspire you to become multitasking machines. But then why is time management so important? Simply because that if we don't plan how we are going to spend our time, we will end up running around from one activity to another without any purpose. So it's like the difference between being a reactive person and being a proactive person. A reactive person only reacts to situations, and consequently, naturally, their lives are full of stress. On the other hand, a proactive person plans his time and resources in such a way that it really keeps his stress much lower. We all agree that managing time is challenging, and it only gets harder as life goes on. We all know that, in fact, there are more opportunities in life than there is time to avail them. However, not every task is equally important or urgent. So I guess another key area which we need to focus on is prioritizing, and I'll come to it a little later. Now, when it comes to children, I think it's really important because if kids start early at learning time management, to learn how to weigh their options, it really helps them to determine, and choose and prioritize with regard to various tasks at hand as to what can wait and what cannot wait. And also, it'll give them a clear sense with regard to certain responsibilities, certain tasks that they can keep for the next day. And this will substantially improve their productivity. Now, according to a very famous time management expert, Julie Morgenstern. So I was reading about her. She believes that simple things matter when it comes to time management. And a couple of things that she advocates are so self-evident that they're almost like no-brainers, but yet very rarely acknowledged. For instance, I'll share just one with you. With regard to a very important aspect, with regard to children, she says that on this very topic as to how much time and attention do kids need to feel loved and secure? The answer is short bursts of 5 to 15 minutes, but truly undivided attention delivered consistently, and not sporadic big blocks of time delivered erratically. So again, the focus here is on quality of time much more than the quantity, right? The focus here is on consistency and quality, because the moment it's undivided attention, naturally the quality substantially goes up. So this again, brings us back to the first part of my deliberation when I said digital distractions. So with a smartphone in our hands, which continuously keeps on ringing, simply refuses to stay silent, with WhatsApp messages, mails, reminders coming on and on. I think it's really important that as far as personal relationships are concerned, even if short periods of time, but the focus has to be on quality. And the way I was reading about Morgenstern, I'll say much more than a time management expert, she comes across as a philosopher of our race against mortality. With regard to pandemic, I think some very interesting perspective I read. According to her, we should stop waiting until we have 90 minutes to exercise, or a whole evening to pretend that we are at a restaurant, or an afternoon to really lose ourselves in big thoughts, because those things actually and practically won't happen ever, considering the fact that we have so many conflicting priorities and we continuously try to balance. So in order to remain passively normal, she feels that it's really important to focus on activities like resting, adequate rest, exercise, sleep, love, and fun. This substantially enhances our productivity. So whatever time we are spending in a particular task, our output gets amplified, considering the fact that we are at our best. So I think she summed it up very well when she said that it's important to take adequate rest. After all, it's a lockdown and we are not sailing the Atlantic. If we look at other case studies, for instance, most successful entrepreneurs have some form of morning routine, which includes rising early, exercising, eating a healthy breakfast, and as I think Balisa very rightly pointed out, doing the most challenging task first. And many successful people, including Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, actually don't essentially overfill their schedules. So I was reading about them, rather both men reportedly attribute their successful time management to leaving plenty of blank spaces in their calendar. So they feel that this allows flexibility for handling unexpected circumstances, and it gives them the space to focus on their passion. So again, focus is on quality. Because at times we see that being over obsessive about time management, and I believe it can be counterproductive. Continuously searching for ways to use more time more effectively can actually leave children feeling more anxious and stressed. According to a BBC article, available evidence actually suggests that time management tools and strategies work for some people in some circumstances, but not for all, right? So there was a research which was conducted in 2017, and the author noted that continually chasing better time management becomes a self-defeating strategy in which people can initially complete more by using these tools, but forget that productivity has limits. A more serious consequence occurs when people lose sight of their real motivations. And this is very interesting. And this is one of the reasons why techniques fail. And why so? And when we say that people lose their real motivation, why so? Because many of them rely on willpower for success. Okay, I want to do 10 things. I wake up in the morning and I want to do all 10. So I rely on my willpower. I'm pushing myself. But the truth is, and history has proved this time and again, that we are not really motivated by willpower as much as by our emotion. So if there is something that we love to do, we will undoubtedly put our best foot forward. And that's because we are emotionally connected. So again, people today, if you look at the scenario today and if you compare it to how things were a few decades back, we would all agree that people today have considerably more freedom to organize their time and juggle multiple projects, which causes a lot of pressure. Because see, freedom comes with responsibility. We would all agree. So naturally, we have to think a lot more about how to manage our time. Now, with regard to learning time management, and again, considering the fact that our focus is very much, and although this topic is universally applicable, of course, for all of us, but still, if you look at things from the perspective of student learning, we would all agree that like energy, like money, time is a finite resource, and as such, undoubtedly needs to be effectively managed. And I think planning and controlling the amount of time that you spend on a specific task are the key. And of course, prioritizing, very, very important, right? So simple things like goal setting. So for example, a short-term goal might include completing the homework early each day so that there's ample time for music lessons, to practice music. Long-term goals may be to be able to play in the school band, or maybe at a bigger national or international stage. But the fact is there a clear goal? If there's a clear goal, and again, as we discussed earlier, is it sheer willpower? Is it because somebody else is telling the student that yes, you need to be good at music? Or is the student emotionally connected? If the student is emotionally connected, undoubtedly, he or she will find out time for this. Prioritization, I was coming to this again and again. So setting priorities, so whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, can really help a lot, right? Because again, it also helps to ensure activities that are vitally important but not urgent. So there are activities which are not urgent, and sometimes we tend to ignore them. For example, adequate sleep and exercise, but they're so important if you look at things from a long-term perspective. Organizing things. Naturally, some people are naturally more well organized than others. But simple things like maintaining an up-to-date calendar, keeping a tidy study environment helps. Managing stress. Again, excessive stress never ever helps anyone. So as we discussed, getting enough sleep, exercising are great ways to keep stress at bay and actually make learning far more efficient, because not only about how much time we are devoting, how much focused are we? And that again depends on how well rested are we. Are we being able to completely focus on that? Starting with an agenda. So is there a clear agenda in front of the child? Is there a clear master schedule? Again, I think Sir very wonderfully referred to this. Starting assignments early, keeping a little bit of a buffer so that there's little leg room for any unforeseen contingency that comes up. Again, another aspect is multitasking. Now, this is very important. The way I look at it is that, when I say we should avoid multitasking, see, multitasking is a reality in today's life. And under any circumstances, all of us do multitask. But I think the key is, even if we have 10 or 20 priorities or 10 or 20 things to tackle, I think it is really important to teach our children that when they're trying to focus on any particular task, they should completely be able to do it and not get distracted by other pending stuff at hand. That I think is very, very important. Reducing distraction and encouraging them to take regular break. Simple things like, what I think has always been very, very important: keeping a clock placed visibly before you. Avoiding perfectionism and fussing over unimportant details, I think Sir referred to it, is very true. Very, very true. Especially, it may not be always possible to get something perfect in the first possible attempt. But it's really important. It's really important to not get frustrated. It's a huge time waster. And look at the bigger picture. Again, reducing downtime. Say, how do you do it? During the commute, if someone is traveling to school, can he or she utilize the time? Rewarding achievement. If a particular child is actually performing, it's really important. Being able to multitask, being able to take care of all the priorities, is really important to acknowledge it and reward the same. The way I look at it, I think much of the time management could be considered discomfort management and energy management. So here the focus is on creating and cultivating habits, rituals, orientations that support our spending time in a manner which is most beneficial for us, so as to take care of uncertainty, doubt, and other uncomfortable experiences. I think another important, very, very important aspect is knowing ourselves. What works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. So it's really important to do a self inventory. I think part of being productive and working towards our goal is knowing how we work best. It's important to think through some simple questions. For instance, at what time of the day are we most productive? So we all know that there are that many of us, we are able to focus. We are morning persons. We are able to focus excellent early in the morning. Whereas for many other people, maybe late night when the entire world goes to sleep, that's the time when we can completely focus. Where do we work our best? Is it at home or the library or the lab? And again, simple aspects like how do we prepare? How do we organize? How do we procrastinate? How do we avoid, do we really avoid tough projects, and how do we get over this? For instance, again, what are the things that really distracts us? I think three things are key here when it comes to time management. First, awareness, thinking realistically about our time by understanding that it is a limited resource. Second, arrangement, designing and organizing our goals, plans, schedules, and tasks to be effectively used over a period of time. And third, adoption, monitoring our use of time while performing activities, including adjusting to interruptions or changing priorities, because that can always happen. We need to keep that buffer in hand, as Sir referred to. Now, I was going through another very interesting article, an interview of around 29 achievers, 29, 30 achievers, academic achievers from MIT, Harvard, and trying to understand that, because there's a book. So there's a book, and I'm sure many educators in this forum might have referred to that. 15 secrets successful people know about time management. So in that particular book, there was an interview of 29 students, all A-listers of Harvard and MIT. And three simple things came forward. So if you look at all these interviews, there are three common points which really helped them. First, limiting social media usage. Second, using a calendar. And third, prioritizing, the power of priorities. Each one of them have advocated that it is really important to be able to prioritize. See, time, the way I look at it, time is highly elastic. If we cannot make more time, time will stretch itself to accommodate what we choose to put into it. So the key to time management is being able to first being realistic with ourselves, plan, and prioritize. And again, in the process, not to shortchange our health and well-being, which is equally important, the qualitative aspect. So these are a few things that I wanted to discuss. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. We have an excellent and wonderful panel here today, very, very experienced panel. And I really look forward to hear their deliberation on this important topic. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we have a stellar panel lined up for you today. Before that, just a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech organization. We make short videos. Yes, short because time needs to be managed. Every video that we make is 6 to 10 minutes in duration. And what it does, it is mapped exactly to the school curriculum so that it can give the students a more visual understanding of the topics that you are teaching to them. Notebook serves as a teaching aid for all of you. You could use these videos in your class, whether it's an online class or an offline class, and have your students develop a more visual understanding of whatever you're teaching. Months later, when they have to revise for an exam, students have access to the same videos on their personal devices. Whatever they have at home, a laptop, a smartphone, they can access Notebook on that. What I'm going to do now is play you a very short clip of one of those Notebook videos so that you know exactly what Notebook videos look like.
His death led to the replacement of the Roman Republic by the Roman Empire. Mark Antony, Lepidus and Julius Caesar's grandnephew or adopted son, Octavian Caesar, organized Julius Caesar's supporters after his death and struggled against the opponents for years. Finally, after 13 years, Octavian Caesar became the emperor of Rome, taking the name of Augustus. Augustus was the first emperor of the Principate, which introduced the emperor as the leading citizen of the empire. In reality, the ruler in the Roman emperor was the absolute authority, but he respected the Senate, which had controlled Rome earlier in the days of the Republic. So he tried to continue some of the beliefs and ideals of the Roman Republic headed by the Senate. Besides, the common people highly honored members of the Senate.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short clip from one of the notebook videos where we use rich art and hand-drawn illustrations to engage our students. If you head on to our website, www.notebook.school, you would find more than 10,000 such videos tailored to the school curriculum at your disposal. Another thing that we do at Notebook is we create events that engage the student community. A lot of you would remember last year we did a debate called Zero Hour, where we had 64 schools from 7 countries participating in some of the best debating I've ever seen. This year we have taken it a notch higher. We have partnered with IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, and we have put together an event called the Notebook Ignite. This is an international inter-school online innovation and entrepreneurship challenge. We are inviting your students between classes 9 to 12 to look around them and pick up any problem that they want to solve. We want to know the innovative solutions that our young students can come up with. Once they have figured out a solution, they would be mentored by mentors from the IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, and they get to finally present their solutions in front of a jury and compete against other schools. And we want to find out all these brilliant, fantastic, innovative ideas that our young students are coming up with. Well, we have announced this in our last 2 episodes as well, and the slots are filling up real fast. Of course, if you're a notebook center of excellence, entry to you is guaranteed. However, if you're a non-NCOE school, please head over to this link, which is http://bit.ly/notebook-ignite. That's bit.ly/notebook-ignite, and you can register your schools. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those are the announcements that I had to make. It is now time to move on to the wonderful panel that we have with us. Today, we are privileged to have 3 very experienced educators on the panel for you. We have with us Mrs. Veena Anil, who is the principal of the DI Academy of Learning in Bangalore. She's been an inspirational leader with 19 years of experience in the field of education. She has worked with CBSE, ICSE, and state board schools. Her main focus as an educator is to bring quality education to students for holistic development. In her career, she was associated with various dynamic, progressive institutions where she could utilize her skills and experiences, which not only provided a challenging career alternative, but also an opportunity to contribute to the institutions as well as towards the development of society. She herself holds a master's in biotechnology, a master's in psychology, bachelor's degree in education, diploma in counseling and guidance, and a Cambridge International Diploma for teachers and trainers. She believes that a teacher is a lifelong learner and has completed various certifications from many reputed universities. She has conducted many workshops for teachers to share her knowledge and experience with upcoming teachers and trainers. She is also one of the resource persons from CBSE for the teachers' trainings in CBSE schools. She is awarded the prestigious EduStar Award for her contributions in the field of education. She is honored by All India Citizens Group with Ideal Principal Award. She has been selected as the best district principal by the Science Olympiad Foundation Group. She has served as a jury member on a government project, Dream On India, which is addressed to the Honorable President of India. Ma'am, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. We're privileged to have you. We also have with us Mrs. Nutan Budhiraja, who is the principal of the Learning Path School in Mohali. She is a BA Honours in Political Science, an MA in Political Science, an MPhil in Public Administration, and a B.Ed. She has taught and headed American and IGCSE Cambridge curriculum schools in Middle East for more than 13 years. She headed the team for American and Q&A accreditation processes in 2 established schools. She worked in Naval Public School, New Delhi, and was the DHM at YPA School in Mohali. She is currently the principal at Learning Path School, Mohali, a school ranked number 1 in Mohali in the category of co-ed day schools. She has also taught in Delhi University colleges and received the Best Teachers Award. She's passionate about creating a transparent professional work environment and has been frequently published in journals and newspapers. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for making the time. We also have with us Vanita Chengappa, who's an accomplished professional in the education space, a retired CBSE school principal with close to 4 decades of experience, being a psychology lecturer, teacher, administrator, mentor, and consultant across various student age groups. She has worked with CBSE in many capacities, including being a member on the Inspection Committee for School Affiliation, Examination, Evaluation, and Observer for CTET. She collaborated with various institutes of renown to help them refine their pedagogy, improve awareness of life skills, and behavioral psychology among teachers and students. In her free time, she likes to travel, read multidisciplinary topics across diverse topics such as history, sociology, and psychology. Ma'am, thank you once again for being here today. Thank you for making the time. I shall start my video now and stop the share so that we can see each other and start this discussion. First of all, a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute privilege to host you. Vanita ma'am, Nutan ma'am, if I may please request you to switch on your cameras. Nutan ma'am, can we just quickly check your audio once?
Everyone?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Veena ma'am, if I may come to you first. How important do you consider time management in the larger scheme of things, and especially now that we are in the situation where we are working from home?
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Shubhayu. And I'm really feeling privileged to be a part of this wonderful panelist group. And first of all, I just wanted to express my sincere appreciation to Major General Neeraj Bali, sir. The great introduction, how it started. It was really awesome. And one quote which I noted down was, the major problem that we all are facing is we think we have time, right? So somewhere that is something like our attitude or our thinking itself is something which needs to be changed if we have to practice our skills, time management skills. Now, time management is actually one of the most common issues in the way of productivity under normal circumstances, whether it is for the teacher or any other professional, in case even the housewives. So good time management allows you to accomplish bigger results in a shorter period, which will definitely lead to more time freedom. Now, it helps you to focus better on your goals, responsibilities, and overall what is expected from you, irrespective of whichever role or a designation you are holding. It allows you to be more productive because you will be able to keep a part of your day for reflection and also innovation. And this in the process definitely will lower your stress and gives you more time to spend with people that matter most, particularly family. Now, when we speak about teachers, time management for teachers is really crucial. Teachers need to balance the short-term and long-term goals of the classroom. They need to focus on the immediate educational needs of every student. And also they need to arrange the teaching learning process and the environment which caters to the individual needs of students. Now, above all, we all know that the documentation that comes along with the teaching, the large volume of paperwork that comes with every assignment. So with effective time management skills, teachers can increase their productivity and provide a better education for their students. So as a professional, it's extremely important for a teacher to have good time management skills. Now, coming back to your question, we are in a situation where now we are forced to work from home. And we were never thinking that teachers will be working from home. It was always meant for the corporates or IT professionals. So we are operating in strange times. See, working from home automatically comes with additional time management challenges. Flexible working hours are one of the benefits of remote work. And also it lets teachers to structure their days according to their convenience. But what happens is that it turns into a disadvantage to many of them. Some actually forget to clock out and differentiate between work life and home life. Now, what happens is that as a result, this might lead to working longer, but without quality, which again results in teachers burnout and also adding stress onto them. Whereas in physical environment, there is a distinction between professional and personal life. So if we look at the importance of time management, definitely, irrespective of whichever position you are holding or whichever role you are handling, it is good to have a routine. And irrespective of the mode of work, whether you're working from home or you're physically working from the campus, it's always better to have a regular routine, prioritize things so that the outcome is of quality.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Nutan ma'am, if we may come to you next. I think Veena ma'am spoke about the difficulties of working from home. I would take it one step further. The flexible working hours works well for IT professionals because they perhaps work on modules of a larger project which can be done at any given point in time. But while you had to work from home, a lot of flexibility was taken away by the fact that students had to come to class at a certain time. So that synchronous learning had to happen. How difficult is time management for a teacher while they're teaching from home?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely informative listening to the esteemed speakers. Learned quite a bit, and I guess the wide spectrum of time management was very well covered and addressed by everyone here. And I feel that with pandemic, if anything has happened, it's just this, that we understand that time needs to be respected and it needs to be used in most useful manners. We may have created assets for ourselves, but we may have done that at the cost of our health, and which is what hit us when Corona came around, though we know very little about it. But coming from a school perspective, I would say that these are very dynamic times. We are probably at a time where history itself is being made in the field of education industry. The very definition of education, school teaching, and teachers themselves is getting redefined. And the so-called line between a professional and a personal life has been completely blurred to a large extent. And that's very natural because the classroom has come not only to the student's house, but it has also had found a space for itself in a teacher's home. In your own family, you could have you could be a part of a joint family and therefore it has its own constraints. You could be in a nuclear family and it could have its own issues. But the fact that now that the school space has to be created within your own home has really created a lot of challenges for the teachers. It's not easy. It's not easy. Let's just try and accept that also. And time management, therefore, is the only way forward in trying to understand as to how do we create space and be professional also in delivering in what we are doing, for example. The teacher's sense of feeling overwhelmed, for example, the fact that some teachers might feel, stressed out, or sometimes we've also had teachers who might, experience the fact that it's too much for me to handle, that there isn't enough time. So to all of these and such kind of emotional issues also that the teachers face, I think the only solution is the time management. We need to prioritize, we need to plan. The more we plan, the more we work it out on a piece of paper, the more effective it will be when we actually try to implement it on the ground, for example. I strongly believe that there are no quick fixes to the kind of issues that we are dealing with online teaching happening from home, whether you call it synchronous and we may move into a hybrid teaching, or asynchronous teaching as we talk about with blended teaching. I mean, there are all different models of teachings that are available out there that we may experiment with, and then ultimately settle down with something which is most convenient and comfortable for our student community in our own spaces. But yes, time management, therefore, probably is something that requires our time, our attention, our focus, and we need to prioritize, plan, get professional. There's no scope for getting emotional about the whole thing, that I'm at home taking care of my kids, having to cook, and then also having to teach and then do the corrections. Also keep in mind, and that's something which is very significant, we've suddenly gone paperless in our schools. And that's something which is unbelievable. I mean, a school was all about copies and notebooks and registers and, that kind of documentation and recording that we used to do. So have to switch from that also onto an online medium, not just for teaching purposes, but for recording and having to make different kind of videos, use different tools and apps so as to make your classes more interactive. I think it's a huge challenge that teachers are facing. But thanks that we have such kind of webinars, such kind of talks, open-minded conversations happen. The most difficult topics get tabled, and everyone gets to share, hear from each other, and then be comforted. We are not alone in a jungle. We are very much a part of a community. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pam. Just on one point, since you spoke about things going paperless, this is this one. This is the one paperless notebook that I wish would still be part of your schooling. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Vanita ma'am, over to you. Ma'am, you've had more than 4 decades of running schools, teaching. What's been your experience with time management? Has it changed with time as more and more technology has stepped in?
Good evening, everyone. Thank
Ma'am,
you.
we can't see you yet.
You can't see me?
No, ma'am.
Maybe some technical issues.
No problem, ma'am. We can hear you fine. Yeah, you're audible perfectly.
You can hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
All right. Anyway, thank you, Notebook, for this opportunity. Value of time is spoken all the time, but rarely practiced. I'm sure everyone here would agree with me, right? So, well, in my opinion, time management is extremely important for a teacher. And there are two aspects here. I will not delve too much into online classes. Madam Veena has already spoken about it in detail. So there are two aspects here. One is preparation for the class, and secondly, the actual class itself. Coming to preparation for the class, I feel teacher needs to be cognizant of the time required to prepare content for the class. And teacher will be, using internet, and that is definitely a distraction. And therefore, teacher needs to be very careful about the time she allocates for preparing the content and all that. And secondly, coming to the class, students are distracted usually very easily. That is the fact. Nobody can deny that. But a teacher should prepare a class in such a way that she, breaks down the sessions into interesting and easily digestible bites so that, children can take it easily. So here, working knowledge of time management will help the teacher design the modules so that when the teacher designs the modules, she has to bear in mind the different teaching techniques as well as the learning needs of the students in mind. It should support the learning styles of the students. So when this is done, the children will be actively engaged in the class and learning will happen. So not only learning happens, it will be effective, and they're also empowered because they are actively engaged in activities. So what happens here, both the teaching and learning objectives are met, right? So time is not wasted. Time wasters are eliminated. So time management is extremely important for a teacher. Thank you. Can you?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. Especially coming from your kind of experience, it's wonderful to hear about how this has stayed important through the ages. Now, I personally learned the importance of time management the hard way. I was in school, I was growing up in Calcutta, and time management was not even a thing that you did actively. Right? Your day was planned out for you. Your school started in the morning, you came back home, you played, you studied, you went to sleep. It's only when I went to hostel in Bangalore that after a month or two, me and a lot of my friends found ourselves completely lost when it came to time. And that's when it hit me that schools do such a fantastic job of teaching their students how to manage time. So Veena, I'll come to you first again. How do you do this? How do you teach students how to manage time?
See, many children are actually overwhelmed by the prospect of fitting everything they have and they want to do. Between homework, activities, and just time to play, there's a lot to do. Commonly, what we see that most students don't have the cognitive abilities to organize their schedules independently until they reach middle school. We expect them to be more organized only by the time they complete grade 5 or grade 6. After that, we expect them. But when we teach children strategies for time management from an early age, they internalize them. And this will set them for a lifelong success. So it's very easy in a school how we teach students the time management skills. Definitely, it's not a period where you are going to teach the skill. It's not like that. But right from preschool, like for example, pre-primary department, which will be ranging 3 to 4 years old, we can always have some kind of activities. For example, like adults, being adults, we always have a calendar. We have an app that reminds us, what to be done, when to be done, and all those kind of things. Similar to that, if we can make a picture schedule for children, like for example, an apple for the snack time, or for at home, they can use the book for a story time. So if they have something similar to this, which looks like a calendar where they can relate to it, they understand the value of time and they will follow that. And in psychology, there is a thing that is called as delayed gratification. So when we are actually practicing that waiting, when we allow children to wait for their gratification or whatever they are eager to achieve, if we delay that, definitely what happens, they understand the value of time. And I'm not saying like it should be delayed so much that they lose the interest. It should be something like which is achievable, and they look forward for it, and they value each and every second that they are passing. Now, when it comes to the primary school, like for example, grades 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, we can slowly start teaching them the time. Definitely, it's a part of the curriculum also, but how far we use it as a part of our daily classes. It's always good to have a clock in the classroom, even at grade 1 level, though they have not started understanding what is, how the time is measured or how the time is read, but still we can have it. Or maybe some kind of chart paper activity where teacher manually changes the time and shows it. So every time, every activity, every class, every curriculum, if we relate to it, it becomes a practice for the child. Even practicing countdown, when they have to do something, or they have to give an answer. Normally in a group activities, we have seen when the child has to say some answer and the other group members are not supposed to prompt, and the teacher is doing the countdown, 5, 4, 3. You can see that kind of eagerness. They understand, yes, I don't have time, I need to finish it, right? So these kind of things are very important when it comes to a little bit bigger age. And also making them understand about the consequences. If you don't stick to the time, what are the consequences? We always say no, we always say don't, but we never say what is allowed. And we should make them understand, be aware of, if you lose this time, what will happen? So that it's not because they are doing things for you as a teacher or as a parent, it is basically for them. So that understanding is very important. And it's very easy, like as they reach grade 6, 7, and when they are moving ahead, it's always better to have creating a small short-term or a long-term goal. Probably when you are starting grade 6, a child who doesn't have a good handwriting, initially itself, the beginning of the session itself, teacher can say that, see, this year, pick up what is your goal. End of this year, this is what you're going to achieve. Child can write in one book or a paper or somewhere where he can actually see that every day. Like, I will try to improve my handwriting by end of this year, which is legible. And every time when the child is doing something good in towards that, teacher has to make sure that she is appreciating the child. So what happens is that when we create this short-term and long-term goals, and also when we guide them how to practice the time-bound activities and keep a track of milestones to check their progress, I'm sure these kind of activities will definitely make it as a practice for children, that they will understand the value of time. Also, it becomes a routine for them. Like, you don't have to sit and teach. It becomes a natural phenomena for them.
Wonderful, ma'am. The one thing that we are realizing through this series of webinars is the subjects in school are like the plasma, and you have very basic skills like time management, discipline, a lot of life skills that are just plugged into them somehow that you just never realized as a student. Nutan ma'am, if I may come to you, uh, we know I'm talked about all these younger years. As you get to the adolescent period, especially your class 11s and 12s, they'll have their own sense of time, right? They have their own pressures on time, if I may call it that. How do you manage that? How do you teach them how to manage their time?
You know, we often talk about 21st century skills. And we also have often had a lot of discussion about how the job market is going to change. And that, certain figures are thrown around that tell us that the kind of jobs we know today wouldn't exist, that some have already become extinct over the past a few years, for example. We at LPS, are very focused on two things. We want our students to become independent learners, and we want them to be self-learners at the same time. I mean, how much can you monitor, guide, mentor a grown-up child, responsible, who's also matured? They have a thinking head over their shoulders. We respect them for their opinion, for their views. But at the same time, they're still in a school and they still need direction. They still need to be, kind of channelized insofar as their energies and understanding is concerned. So there is a whole lot of focus on, of course, scheduling. There is a whole lot of focus on kind of structures that a school would try and provide to the student, which a child would voluntarily choose to become a part of. We have some amazing programs running in our high school, for example, where they get an opportunity to create a business module, for example, with proper secretaries and CEOs and financial advisors, CFOs and CEOs and so on. So giving them a real life experience as to what it is like outside, having them to interact with professionals from the outside field. When they walk into the school or they walk into their territory, they realize that, things aren't as simple as they are, playing it out to be. It's natural, it's their age to be distracted. We give them that kind of space. There is no way you would want a teenager to become a saint and let go of the Facebook or Instagram or Snapchats or whatever it is. So we respect it, but we also try and at the same time have a lot of talk happening with them based on, we have a career counselor in our school who starts working with the students as early as class 8. And that's not dictating terms, but that's just opening up windows for the children to see outside what's happening and what do I need to get myself ready with. And more often than not, you would find that the students take on to this kind of a view, this kind of an exposure so much more voluntarily. And it gives them a direction anyway to their daily life, for example, which is beyond class 10 marks and beyond class 12 marks. We also have, behavior psychologist who does a lot of talk and sessions with these students. We are in a direct contact with the parents, telling them that while the child may have grown up physically and in age also, he still needs to be mentored. He still needs some kind of a steady hand at the back, not obviously as it would be in a grade 1. To a grade 1 child, you would handhold. But when a child is in classes 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, for example, that you refer to, there's this, there has to be some balance. Somebody who brings in some kind of steadiness to their daily life. There are too many apprehensions, there are too many fears. The students are having a lot of ambitions. Many of our students are also very highly aspirational. Now, if none of those was to get translated into reality, the level of frustration that they would face is going to be very, disastrous. So we make sure that we provide them the right support system, the right fencing around them, so that they try and understand that 11 and 12, while 2 years is actually down to some counted few months only, within which they have to prepare for their profiles if they want to go outside of India, for example, or prepare for competitors if they're wanting to get into some professional courses, for example. So I think 11 and 12 time management becomes more about using the time in a manner which is geared towards their aspirations, towards their ambitions, so that they don't go haywire, so that they don't lose their faith in their own ability, because that may happen too soon. I'm sure you are young and you would remember your high school days as to how quick it is to float onto the seventh heaven and how quick it is for you to fall down flat on your face, just because emotionally you're not able to handle the kind of pressures. So, and we do a lot in that area at our school, and make sure that, you know, the students are taking these decisions on their own. Of course, under the expert guidance and talks and sessions and interactions with the parents, and dealing with their issues if they have one-to-one also. You know, sometimes they're overwhelmed coming to school and then having to prepare for competitive, yet having to, you know, go to some kind of an academy for sports. You know, that's too much for a child to handle in a 24 hours. So you need to be there to tell the child as to how you could do all the three together at the same time, right? Because you can't take away anything from the plate today. The times are such. Everything has to be there, has to find a space for itself. And that space can be created only when you manage your time in a manner that you're more effective and you're more efficient. And therefore, at the end, you become more productive with reference to your outcomes, for example. So our approach to 11 and 12 is, you know, to get them ready once they step outside the walls of a school to meet the challenges which are there outside, and not be overwhelmed and frustrated, not knowing what to do with 24 hours. Either add more to it, they would demand, or take some off it. None of those two are going to happen. That's how time is.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank
Also, thank you for that compliment. I clearly look younger than I am.
You didn't have to say that.
Vanita, ma'am, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, I would look for something very specific from you. From your experience,
All
do you
right.
find...
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
let me try whether I can.
Sure, ma'am. When you meet a child who study, you know, for a long period of time, and you're seeing this behavior develop, how do you deal with that? What do you do with that one child that is becoming
Yeah,
tardy
yeah.
over time?
Certainly. And of course, we have to give equal attention to all the students. So when it comes to, in general, so we have to give them simple tips, but practical tips while dealing with those children, wherein they can understand, and we look into their learning styles. We have to focus on their learning styles, and then set simple routines and to ensure that they stay organized. So I strongly believe in the phases of the day. Whether it is over maybe the child, whether they are night learners or night owls, or whether they learn well in the daytime. But I would give equal importance to everybody. I don't sideline anyone. I wouldn't sideline anyone. And very important thing for everyone, I have to mention this here. Children need to be told about the the importance of the cycle of attention and distraction, and then to get the optimal flow. See, for example, if a child has to study for 6 hours, it's quite unlikely child would get that 6 hours of flow. So therefore I would tell them to remain focused. They just adjust their learning time just for 20 to 30 minutes. That's all. Okay, not more than that. And take a break for 5 minutes. And after that, after 4 or 5 such attempts, such series, they can take a break for 30 minutes. And in those 30 minutes, they are totally disengaged. They'll never look into their books nor study at all. Instead, they will do some exercises, focus, they can watch TV for some time, or do some relaxation techniques. They can try out all that. So, and one more thing for them, particularly, they can experiment on, the different time cycles. Like, as I said, if they are night learners, or if they are comfortable learning in the morning, if their peak concentration is during the daytime. So I will ask them to experiment on that and find their peak performance time. And once they find their peak performance time, they can set their schedules accordingly, and whichever time they are comfortable with. So they can go ahead with that. And when I mentioned about this 30-minute schedule, because everybody knows their span of attention, even research has proved, the optimal for anyone to remain in concentration is only 25 to 30 minutes. And then for such children, it will be even less. So therefore, here, what they need to do is just focus on their comfortability, their learning style, focus on that. That is very, very important. And here what happens, in these simple tips, focuses, it aids their mental as well as physical well-being. How? Children get time. See, when they, end of the day, when they realize they could do everything comfortably, so they feel a sense of satisfaction. So they can, sleep really well. They get that 8 hours of needed sleep, right? And also they get to exercise in between the hours, and also nutrition, of course, that they need to take care of it. So their physical and mental well-being is also taken care of. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's amazing how much this matches the coaches of professional athletes. Professional athletes get coached in the exact same way. That this is the part of the day where your body is at its optimum. This is when you should train. This is how much of sleep you should get. It's perfectly, almost perfectly mapped. For the next question, if Nutan ma'am, if I may come to you first, ma'am, during this period of time, and this is something that I've kind of thought when I was listening to both of you, how important has been the support from the families of teachers in terms of managing their time?
There have been different phases over this past 1.5 years since pandemic happened. Initially, there was a sense of euphoria. Kids were at home, and one could call it even a honeymoon period to begin with. The family get-togethers and not having to wake up at odd hours or like 5 o'clock, getting your child to the school by 7:30. Then suddenly the parents realized that there was a need for them to understand what was happening insofar as these classrooms are concerned. Some of them did it because they were trying to understand, and some of them did it only because they became a little too critical of the system of teaching in the school itself, which till that day was perfectly fine. And then we've come to a point today where the parents have started appreciating, recognizing, and have started contributing, to the teaching learning process. Because we keep talking to the parents and we keep telling them, when your child was here with us in the school from 7:30 to 2:30, we really didn't need you much. But today, the tables have turned, right? The kid is with you the entire day, 24 hours, and we don't even get to see him physically. I mean, we just don't know what's happening in his life. So we encourage our parents, for example, and they have been very forthcoming in that area also, to talk to us about any changes that they see in the pattern behavior of their child, either not sleeping or sleeping too much or being on the mobile and getting distracted, doing the kind of things they never did before. Outdoor activities were at its zero to begin with. Students of different age groups are cooped up within the four walls of their rooms. So we very much depended upon the parent support insofar as, if nothing else, in mentoring and in guiding the students and watching over the children. And I must say that, and I'm only speaking from ground reality of my own school, that we got a wonderful support from our parents. And if our students are doing as well as they're doing, not just in academics but also in non-academic activities, during the closure time, the schools not being there, the teachers not being there to guide and train the students, our students have been able to go up to national levels, for example, and they're getting their books published and being sold on Amazon, for example. So that's a whole lot of work happening at the other end of the spectrum, in which the school has only done one thing, which is to motivate, inspire the children, and ask the parents to become our partners. So what has happened at LPS is that today we don't feel that we are fighting a lonely battle. We have the parents' support with us. we have the children therefore well taken care of, because that triangle between a student, a parent, and a school is very well taken care of. The student therefore feel very safeguarded, very comforted with the idea that the parents know what's happening, and the school also feels very confident, because we've opened up a learning center also, virtual, wherein students who face any learning difficulties, they are being given support. Parents feel very happy because they are not equipped to deal with so many subjects, and to get the children ready with almost everything. So the parental support was the key to the success during the pandemic time, I would say. Initially, we all struggled with our own spaces as to how do we connect, how do we relate, what do we communicate, and how much should we tell. But the classroom was in their houses, in their drawing rooms, in their living rooms. So they were listening to their teacher, they were listening to their own child, right? And they also, for the first time, realized the potential of their own child, or the lack of potential of their own child. So all the time they were fighting with us that my child deserves a 99. Suddenly he knew why he was walking away with a 40 plus. So that battleground, was reduced big time, and we are all on the same platform. I think that's been a huge success insofar as, and gives us a lot of confidence to continue with what we're doing. At LPS, just to finish off the talk on this, besides the academics, we are very focused on the co-curricular, extracurricular, or non-academic activities also, whether by way of events or activities, or whether by way of competitions, or by way of collaboration with, some very happening institutes outside. So I think it's been possible only because the parents realized that the school was making a sincere effort to make sure that the time gets utilized as best as it could, despite the fact that the schools are physically closed. So I hope this partnership continues to grow and get better, because the ultimate gain would be of the students, neither the parents nor the school. The student would gain hugely out of this entire collaboration amongst us.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Veena, ma'am, if I may come to you, ma'am, the other side of the family, the teacher's family, because here's this person at home who's taking classes, managing housework. How has that scene been?
I'll tell you, initially as when we started these online sessions, yes, it was a honeymoon period where we all felt, including teachers, the entire family, even the students and their parents, we all felt that, yeah, we don't have to wake up at those odd hours and, get ready and go to school. All these kind of things were not there. We could structure our day the way how we want. Later, when it started moving ahead and we realized that, yeah, this is the way how it is going to be for at least 1 year, then things started getting changed. The focus shifted from being casual to more professional. And I should say that somewhere where the family of teachers, what happens is that, I don't know whether I should say this as a sad fact, because in India, teaching profession is not given that kind of respect what we actually deserve. So somewhere, the kind of attitude which was there towards the teaching profession got completely changed when they saw the kind of efforts what teachers are putting during this time. Because this was very obvious. They could see, like, to conduct a 40-minute session, you need to spend at least 2 to 3 hours for the preparation. And the preparation time increases multifold when you are going to deliver a class with those tools which you have never used before. If you ask a teacher to go and deliver a class for 40 minutes in a physical setup, she will manage it. She might require maybe half an hour preparation. But when it comes to online, all these days they were having that comfort zone, teaching those children in the four walls of the classroom. Now, if 30 students are there in the class, then 60 adults are sitting behind and judging you. So that requires a lot of courage. So teacher needs to be, extremely prepared with all the technical part as well as the content and your presence on screen, how it is. So every aspect need to be taken care, and it requires a lot amount of time for the preparation. And this was actually on a real time, the family was able to see. Initially what happened, like if it used to be a holiday, most of the teachers, majority of the teachers are females. And we know that when a female is there at home on a holiday, her work is actually more compared to the professional thing, right? We expect her to be taking care of the household chores. But here what happened, they saw the kind of effort that is going, and they understood the efforts and the pressure that teacher is going through, and it actually changed the attitude. So now we can see that even the families are very supportive when our teachers are preparing for the classes or they are conducting the classes. And they also value, like, okay, morning 8 o'clock, you are supposed to enter, then 8 to evening 3:40 or 4 o'clock, whatever the school timings are there, the teacher should not be disturbed, because she has got a lot of things to complete during this time. Probably not every hour is an online class, but she has to prepare, she has to correct the assignments, she has to have attend the meetings. So many things are there. So that window of time was given to teachers, whether she is taking from home or at school.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure things have improved significantly. Back when this had just started and teachers were having this very tough time at home, dealing with housework as well as schoolwork. I remember one of my relatives who's also a teacher exclaiming that I wonder what would have happened if more men were in the teaching profession. If this has taken down our patriarchy even by a notch, I think that helps. Well, the last few minutes, so one last question around the table. What is your personal one-line mantra for time management? Nutan ma'am, if we may come with you first.
You know, one thing I do understand, that procrastination is not the way to deal with the stress, the pressure, or the multifarious jobs that you have to do. That's number one. Number two, I do go by the principle of a 2-minute formula, which I think has always helped. Today it's got a name, which means that which can be done under 2 minutes should be dealt with right now, than to be left to be dealt with later. Then those 2 minutes would very quickly become 20 minutes or even more than that. I believe strongly in plan, in prioritizing, and having a professional approach, and bringing in an element of flexibility to the program. Never leave your workplace cluttered when you get up at the end of the day, whether it's at home or at school. Never start your day without a to-do list, for example. There has to be a schedule which is personal to you. You understand, you have the big picture. Start from the big picture and then start working towards the details. The most important things always have to be addressed and should be, one should be always aware of them. There are these little things, none of them individually occupies too much of a time, but together gives you a lot of time. Gives you a lot of time to do a lot more that you want to be doing. There is this concept of time here in India, which is I'm forgetting the name, monochronistic and polychronistic time culture that we have here in India, which is multitasking comes very naturally to us. You go to a visa window, he'll be taking a bite, taking a sip, talking on phone, and yet stamping your passport all at the same time. And whereas in the Western world, you do one job at one time and that's about it. So, but we have it in our genes. We can do a lot of multitasking. What is required is, mindfulness to whatever you do, one task at a time, but with full mindfulness. And I think that works well. And everyone has his or her own style of managing the time. I can't work with any of these going amiss. The day I'm overwhelmed, when I get up in the morning or around 12 o'clock, I put a red flag on that day's calendar, which means I didn't understand the day as to how it's going to progress. So next time, before I go to sleep, for the next day, I'm much more alert and aware as to what all was expected. I think that helps. Keeping an eye, having a bird's eye view of what's happening around you and what it is that you need to be doing. Your role, your responsibility. You can't be everywhere all the time, every time, and that works. That works perfectly well with me. Touch wood.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Veena, ma'am, if I may ask you the same question, your personal time management mantra.
That's a secret. No, jokes apart. See, only one mantra will follow. Not to go with the flow, but go with the plan. See, first of all, we need to have a clarity in our mind. what, when, and how, and make a set of genuine list of activities, realistic activities. And the most important thing, which I feel, that understand your capabilities and your limitations. Because many times what happens, we don't know how to say no to anything. If it is from the professional area or it is from the personal one. If somebody is asking you to do something, we don't know whether that is in our capacity, whether we will be able to accomplish that. Without thinking about it, we accept every challenge. But it's very important to understand our capabilities, our limitations, our shortcomings, and then set the priorities. Then you need to make a time-bound plans, because it's very important to have a plan. And it doesn't mean that like you should be following just like a disciplined way, morning till evening, it should be timed and you should be following that. I'm not saying that. You need to have a plan. You need to have a clarity in your mind. What are you prioritizing first? And then check the progress of those work. And it's always better to keep a buffer time. I always keep a small me time where no, I do something which I really enjoy. It doesn't matter whether an urgent thing is still waiting, but still I find out that 5 minutes of buffer time where I can appreciate myself, or I can entertain myself. So that is very important, because you need that energy, and you have to handle various roles. You have to reach out to many people. You have to take care of many responsibilities. It's not possible for a human to do everything on the same way. So it's very important we have a plan, we prioritize things, and after that we check on a regular basis whether we are progressing in the same way. If that is not progressing, definitely how Madam Nutan was telling, we need to have that red mark that is marked on it, and we need to double check where did we go wrong on our planning, and then we have to rework on it. So it's very important to be effective in what you are doing rather than doing a bigger quantity of work. It should be the quality matters more than quantity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for sharing that. Vanita, ma'am, we're left with your
Yeah,
personal time management mantra.
yeah, sure. Am I audible? I just want to
Yes,
make
ma'am,
sure.
we can
Am I
hear you.
audible?
We can hear you
Okay.
clearly.
Okay, fine. So mine is very simple to-do list. And I follow that very diligently. And I also set realistic deadlines. Say, for example, if I'm reading a book, I read 50 pages a day or 100 pages a day, depending on the type of the book I read. Supposing if, the book is, a very kind of philosophical kind of book, then I would read only 25 pages a day. So that depends. And most importantly, I review whatever there in the list, which is very important. And this I've been doing throughout my career, and it was very convenient and it was very effective. And I would suggest this for the children also, because what happens, children, when they set their own to-do lists, they highly accountable. They give more than 100% of theirs. And at the same time, when they check every day, they just check out to that whether where they are going wrong, what they've done, mistakes they've done. So there's always scope for improvement in that. But of course, they need to have a mindset. It is not just setting the, keeping the to-do list and not doing anything about it at all. So they need to have a growth mindset, which is very important. And here, I would wish to read out the quote written by Martin Luther King. If you can't fly, then run. And if you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. So the bottom line here is take action. Don't just give up. So I want all the students present here to take this as a reminder not to waste their time and to, in idle pursuits. See, most of the time, we are incredibly careful about taking care of our money, right? But then when it comes to taking care of the time, we hardly give a second thought, isn't it? So why? The reason is time is free. Time is free, no doubt. But it is invaluable. So time once wasted, you will never get it back. So I would advise the children to utilize the time judiciously and wisely, take proper care of the time, nurturally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And to all
I'm
three of you,
extremely sorry. There was some issue with the video. I just couldn't come on.
no problem at all, ma'am. None
Yeah.
whatsoever. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for making the time. And
Yeah.
to Veena ma'am and Nutan ma'am as well. Thank you so much for that wonderful, wonderful discussion. I personally learned a whole lot more. Being an entrepreneur, if I look at my schedule, it will be filled with red flags everywhere. And I think today I have learned quite a bit about how to manage that better. Achin, you'll have quite a bit to thank for in the vote of thanks. So without taking much more time, over to you.
No, I think really, really wonderful deliberations. Major Neeraj Bali sir, thank you so much for your presentation. Undoubtedly, very interesting, informative, and meticulous. So I'm sure a lot of esteemed educators in this forum today, and we all go back with a lot of takeaways, sir. So I think great presentation, must appreciate. Veena ma'am, I think thank you so much, ma'am, first of all, for being here in this platform. And I think you made some very valid points, very interesting points, including the way you differentiated with regard to the fact that at various stages, so whether that be picture schedule for preschoolers, appreciating them, tracking milestones, and also the fact that till middle school, considering the fact that cognitive abilities are yet to, yet to be developed to a certain stage, naturally a lot more hand holding is needed. And also the fact that in classes 11 and 12, the way, the entire focus changes. Another thing, ma'am, I think you made a very valid point, and it's, I'll say it really touches our heart. And this is something that we at Notebook clearly believe in, the role of educators during last 1.5 years of the pandemic. And I think you made a very valid point saying that now families are far more supportive. Undoubtedly, ma'am, I completely understand, considering the kind of multitasking, on one hand, managing online classes, as you rightly mentioned, preparation, and also the fact that when you discussed about that being judgmental, the fact that parents are sitting and continuously trying to take note, observations. I personally feel, at times this to be very unfair and very harsh, considering the fact that if you look at things from an educator's point of view, this entire pandemic, especially first few months of the pandemic, it has been very, very tough for educators as well. This was the first time when many of them who have been so well accustomed and great performers at physical teaching, chalk and talk pedagogy that has been going on for so many years, within a very short span of time, they had the courage, the flexibility, the honesty to quickly adapt to changing needs. I think that's something that we all need to appreciate and salute. So I think, ma'am, you made a very valid point. And of course, why only families? I think the entire society appreciates your contribution. And undoubtedly, teaching as a profession, when we see it's a noble profession, it's very, very different, considering the fact that, yes, you are building leaders for tomorrow. It's not only about today's operating needs, but about tomorrow's strategic needs, which is so important, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Nutan, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think some interesting perspective from you, especially I really like the bit with regard to your take on business modules where students are doing role plays. That's really very interesting. That's very close to our heart. Incidentally, as Shubhayu also discussed during this program, that we are looking forward to our event, which is scheduled in July and August, Ignite, in which we really want students to come forward and present business plans, etc. So I think this is a great initiative from your side, really wonderful. We all appreciate this. And also the fact that career counseling, behavioral psychology, all this is so important. And the transition in role of parents that you discussed, the fact that considering the fact that they had to step into the shoes of educator over last 1.5 years and see firsthand with regard to the challenges. I think today, all of us, if as parents, all of us really appreciate and we understand, because, considering the fact when parents are at work and the children are being so well taken care of by teachers, we all understand what they go through. So I think that's wonderful. So the transition in role of parents, and ma'am, we all agree that this triangle between parents, educators and students is so important. It has to work seamlessly. So this partnership, undoubtedly, it's very, very beneficial for the student, who is the ultimate beneficiary. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this.
Thank you.
Vanita, ma'am, thank you for your time. I think you made some very simple and practical points, but very valid points. I must appreciate, especially your observation on the learning styles, phases of the day, and focus on aspects, simple aspects, but so relevant, which aspects like sleep, exercise, proper nutrition, which are so important. And of course, one of my most favorite quotes, which first appeared in the book of Isaiah, but was later also used by Martin Luther King in a college rally. It's a wonderful quote. It really sums it up so well, sums it up very well. So
Thank
I think, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
for your
I'm
time.
sorry for the inconvenience once again.
No worries, ma'am. No worries at all. We are all enriched by your thoughts and thoughts of all our esteemed panelists here today evening. And I'm sure our esteemed educators present in this forum today go back with a lot of great takeaways. It has been a wonderful session. I thank all of you again.
Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care
much.
and goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Our pleasure.